Hey everyone, this is Jeremy. Just wanted to remind you that there is always cool stuff happening at the Patreon for Duckfeed. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv is the place to go to get early episodes, access to cool Slack channels, like the Days of Future Cast channel maybe. You can also get exclusive content and all sorts of goodies over there, so be sure to go check that out. The theme song that you're about to hear is from the Little Big Bangs. They one of the members of the band sent us an email and said, "Hey, we covered the theme song on our album," and I asked them for permission to use it in the show for a couple of episodes, and they said yes. So thank you for letting us do that, and it's a really cool song. You'll find links to all their stuff in the show notes. Without further ado, please enjoy the episode. I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where where Gary and I almost called you Jerry. That's a weird one.
Jerry and this is where Jerry and Gerbauer.
Jerry and Geremy.
Geremy and Jerry. Going. It's been a minute.
It's been
since we recorded. I forgive you for making such error.
It has been a long time. We're here to talk about X-Men and X-Men related properties and Marvel related properties and basically anything that we want to talk about without too much of a theme, because we're two grown ass men that we can make up on our podcast on the fly. So
we're freeballing now.
We are finished with the animated series, Gary. It's been a while since we've recorded those last 3 episodes. We did them all in one 6-hour session, which I think worked out really well. I think those episodes are really good. But so it's been a couple of months since we've recorded. In the meantime, you actually came down and we hung out at my house in person, which was a lot of fun.
Indeed. And surprising few, we ended up just like watching a bunch of X-Men movies.
Of course.
We stayed pretty on brand during that time. We did other stuff as well. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like us standing around just kind of like awkwardly digging our toe into the ground and then all of a sudden like X-Men? and then we threw on the movie and it was like, oh
thank God. Finally something to do with this dude.
Cyclops. Yeah.
I can't finish unless Wolverine's there. So let's need to. That applies to conversations and sex, by the way. Yeah.
But it's like you've got that little picture of him looking at that little picture on the bed next to your bed.
That's exactly right. Look, he's looking at Autumn. I'm looking at Wolverine. That's how that works.
Yeah, and Wolverine's looking at Avon, and they're all labeled as such.
So this is going to be a feedback episode, everybody. So we've collected your thoughts and questions and musings into a Google document that we're going to read and then discuss. If you would like to be on the next one of these that we do, you should go to daysoffuturecast.com/contact and fill out the form there, and it will go right to us. Feel free to do that anytime. As soon as I get those, I immediately put them into the next feedback document so we don't lose them. And just a quick heads up, I've got a report from at least one person that they're saying that they've submitted stuff and it's not going through. And I talked to our podcast host, and it's because their email address is blocked by Gmail. So So get better email, John, is what I'm saying.
That's real weird.
It is.
This is blocked by Gmail.
Yeah, and I can actually send you the picture. The podcast host guy from Fireside just like sent me the picture and it was like accepted, blocked. And I was like, God damn. Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, shit. If something like that happens and you do get it gets blocked, you can also send things on Twitter and
just
the general contact form for Duckfeed. There's various other ways.
Yeah, and all of those will filter back to me. In fact, I should probably just go double check Twitter real quick. No, we didn't get anything on Twitter. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we appreciate it. We're not exactly sure what the next feedback episode will cover exactly and when we'll put that through, because we're kind of in a, whether we'll do those right after we do the Spider-Man episodes or we'll get a couple of movies under our belt. so people can respond about the movies. We'll figure that out. We'll make announcements if you check social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as always, follow DOFC Podcast on Twitter.
And
all of that.
We would normally do a movie episode before a feedback episode, but between travel and real life stuff, we just got this one done barely by the edge of our pants. So movie episode will be next, and we'll be discussing First Class. So go watch the bromance between Magneto and Charles Xavier develop in the 1960s, and have a great time doing it, like me and Gary did, having some beers and some catfish one day and watching some X-Men. So.
And we watched that, so we were prepared to talk about it, but I want to do some research and stuff too.
Yeah, and
I don't know that I'll watch it again, but I'm definitely gonna look up some stuff.
I will because I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm definitely gonna watch it again to make notes and to basically
glutton for. You didn't say punishment. You're a glutton for it sounds like it's the button mint.
Button mints.
What the hell's a button mint?
Dude, I don't know.
I love them though.
They taste
so
great.
Good.
It's a junior mint, but instead of juniors, it's buttons.
Before we totally get into it, we went to Midwest Gaming Classic, me and Cole, and Cole gave me an old issue of Disney Adventures magazine, which has the X-Men on the cover, and has this whole section about the mysteries of the X-Men, and there's an X-Men family album in it. These famous superheroes gave Disney Adventures a sneak peek at their favorite family snapshots. Okay. And there's all these pictures of the different X-Men that it's straight up from the end of the animated series.
That is super cool.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, Gambit's workout includes taking his chances against a training droid in the danger room.
That's his workout? I just do 50 reps. What are you doing,
I figured
Gambit?
It was Kegels. It was just all Kegels all the time. ABK.
Yeah. You know? He's got his pre-K and his post-K workout. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The funniest one of these, so there's all these different pictures, and it's just a cool, drawing of the X-Men. And shows, what they're doing. So Beast is hanging. It's nobody hangs out better than Beast. And it's okay. But my favorite is Storm's. And it says, Storm's power to control the weather comes in handy when the X-Men plan a picnic rather. And the picture is Storm coming down from on high, just shooting lightning down at the ground. So it just looks like she's just blasting their checkerboard blanket and basket.
That is extremely funny. Yeah,
There's also Rogue's superhuman strength and flying ability makes taking out the trash a breeze, and she's definitely relocating a missile.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think that there's just some action scenes that they tried to make cute because Disney.
Is that a political statement? You think that they're just trashing all the missiles?
I don't know. They should be fuck those missiles. No war.
No war.
But she's definitely not taking out garbage. In that thing. So it's pretty fun. I'm going to read through that again because there's also some other things. If anything pops up, that'll come up in some episode or another.
Yes, you need to snap a couple of pictures of that and send it to me because I'd be curious what that looks like in comic book form. Yeah.
The cover shows our boy Gambit. He's really weirdly painted. He's got these real kind of soft edges, and he's throwing cards that have the other X-Men on them that all have these terrible rictus grins on them. So he's shooting playing cards that have Jubilee, Storm, and Wolverine, and they have these big smiles. And then
really
in the corner, Cyclops is just shooting nothing. Cyclops he's the only one not smiling. He's screaming. And he popped in his head from the corner, and he's just shooting something that's off screen.
He's in the
It's a very strange.
He's in the bug room, and he's just shooting all of his problems. He's shooting all of his anxiety, is what's happening.
Just going crazy, blasting in random directions.
Mm-hmm.
Much like this feedback. Blast in random directions as it covers a large number of things.
This feedback it's lightly edited by which I mean I didn't remove last name, so let's be careful about that, Gary. So this has not been edited. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with this one, I think, with all of these. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, let's get into it. Lucas here says, "Hey guys, today I found out that here in Brazil, every iteration of Wolverine since 1994 has been dubbed by the same guy. His name is Isaac Bardavid, something like that. And he worked on the original animated series, X-Men Evolution, Wolverine and the X-Men, and a bunch of other cartoons with Wolverine that I've never heard of, and all of the live-action films. That means he's been doing Wolverine for 23 years now, and he's 86 years old. He just announced that he's retiring now that he's finished working on Logan, which is how I found out about the whole thing. I didn't really watch the dubbed films, but I do remember his voice in the original cartoon, and he was quite good. Apparently, he also dubbed Obi-Wan in the original Star Wars, Jor-El in Superman 78, Deep Throat in the X-Files, and fucking Skeletor from He-Man of all things, among a bunch of others. Quite a career. Anyway, I just thought it was really cool and you guys might enjoy knowing about it. Love the show. Thank you both for making so much of it. Or for making it.
23 years of doing Wolverine.
86. So he started when he was 65?
Yeah. Like, how do you get into voice work when you're 65?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I love the idea of, like, can you imagine if when you watched Logan, it was the animated series, like, voice actor?
Wouldn't that be, because we love the animated series voice actor. And
yeah.
it would be, like, as much as I like, the Aussie dude.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, thank you.
Yeah.
As much as I love that dude.
Are you negging him?
I mean,
do you think he's listening?
You think some guys need to be taken down a notch, Gary. That's just facts. Yeah. Those are just facts.
Yeah, the Greatest Showman? I think not.
Singing and dancing and Wolverine? No, thank you. No bay.
No. It would be pretty bonkers to have the cartoon. Like, I like both, obviously, and Hugh Jackman does a wonderful job in that. I would love to hear the cartoon voice trying to do those emotional scenes, though.
Yeah, me too. Especially because, like, we saw a little bit of this with Banshee from the animated series and that horrible TV pilot that we watched for.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't work out very well. So I can only imagine, because I very seriously doubt that the people that do these voices look like the characters that they're inhabiting in any way, shape, or form. So,
well, he's 65 when he started. So when Logan came out, he was probably like 80, 82. 83. So, like, he definitely didn't look like.
I mean, Hugh Jackman is 72 years old, Gary, and he just did Logan. So.
He really is the Greatest Showman.
The next email is from Chris. Chris says, just want to let you know that you have ruined the name Ilyana for me. I love the show, but every time I get an email or contact from Ilyana, I can't help but read it as Ilyana in my best/worst Colossus voice. Keep up the good work. Keep up the show. It's great. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
I have that same thing. Like, somebody was in a completely, like, unrelated Discord server the other day, was like just saying the word Ilyana because of our show, like, unrelated to me or anything. They were just like, oh yeah, Ilyana, and like doing a bit about it. And I was like, I'm glad we could bring this into the world. This is great.
I don't meet that many Ilyanas in real life.
Ilyana
Rasputin is my only Ilyana.
I've never met an Ilyana before, so this is all new to me.
And as soon as I do, I'm going to do the exact same thing, and then I'll know how it feels.
and then that Tinder date will be over with. That will be the end of that interaction.
Why do you keep doing that? Well, it all began.
Let me tell you about my podcast. No, I don't want to hear about that either.
Let me tell you about Chris Claremont.
Okay, okay, that's better than a podcast. Come on, bring it to me.
Yeah, Tinder dates love it when you talk about Chris Claremont a lot. Just really, really go on about it. Like, and then he formed the Extreme X-Men, which is kind of misguided, but was more of a reaction against Morrison's more progressive X-Men. Created this character named Sage, who,
are you sure you're the ripped guy from the picture? You don't seem like the kind of guy that has a 12-pack.
Hugh Jackman. Yeah. I photoshopped some extra ribs onto Hugh Jackman and used that as my Tinder date profile.
Extra ribs. Somebody in the Slack the other day posted a picture of some random X thing from the comics, and like this dude just had like a straight up 16-pack, which I had never seen before. Like, it gets a little crazy in that Rob Liefeld area.
It happened. Sabretooth oftentimes.
Oh yeah,
it's extra packs. Like that guy's always packing, like, it's not even a pony keg. Like, it's an actual, like, full horse keg.
Yeah, absolutely.
That guy has. So thank you, Chris. Joe writes in to say, "Hi, gents. I wrote in previously about my debate with my brother Jimbo about whether Cyclops' voice actor is double extremely good. You guys got right down to the crux of the issue, which is how he handles the more emotional moments. For my part, I love his baseline delivery of bad dad jokes, but I also feel like his unhinged psych moments are super unhinged. I don't think I take a lot of comfort from my leader in any given moment of uncertainty within the team, or if any given moment of uncertainty within the team was met with, 'It's not Gene.' Jimbo thinks it's all pretty much gold, though, and after you guys weighed in, I guess I have to admit he's right. One last thing. In that same episode of Days of Futurecast, a discussion came up about the worst mutant powers. Marrow's name was mentioned, and I couldn't believe it. After all, as Carl Weathers once pointed out, throw those bones in a pot, add some broth and a potato, baby, you got a stew going." That's gross.
That's
I
really
never
gross.
really thought about marrow as an unlimited source of food.
Well, I mean, like, you know,
Marrow.
I had marrow for the first time, like actual bone marrow recently, and that shit is delicious. So
I'm always grossed out by it. I've never had it, but it looks gross. So
it does look gross. You kind of have to get it, but I mean, like I'm Southern Louisiana. I eat gross shit all the time, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. What does it taste like?
It's kind of like a creamy buttery, and it was definitely like the bone was like cut long ways in half, and like so you could open it up, and so there was like a little tube of it in there, and there was like a sauce that it went with, so you like ate the whole thing. But it was like a kind of a buttery just substance that was good. It was almost like if you got, when we were eating cracklins, almost if you got like one of the really squishy, greasy parts instead of the real crunchy parts, it was almost like that, except not quite as greasy, like a little bit more smooth than that.
Yeah, a little bit more. None of that made it sound good, but like I'd be willing to try it.
So let me describe the process of getting into the crawfish meat. First, you're going to apply pressure at the tail, and you're going to twist and pull.
This creamy, buttery tube.
Hey, look.
I know that I eat a lot of marrow just through like soups and stuff, right? Like you throw some bones in a soup, like that's what you're trying to get is to cook out that marrow, but it just diffuses into the soup. You know, like I've been on this ramen kick for a while, and like I'm real into like tonkatsu ramen with this very savory like pork broth that I know has marrow in it. But just eating it, and then also that gives it like human marrow, right? Like in a way though, like I think that if you were a vegetarian, you could eat stew that came from the mutant marrow because nothing has to die for it.
Yeah, I mean you're not killing animals.
If you're a moral vegetarian, the same way some moral vegetarians will eat a placenta.
I mean,
because like the meat that doesn't cause death.
While we're at it, I mean, we could have a conversation because I love like fried chicken skin, and husk is right there.
Yeah. I think we did talk about that too. Actually,
did we talk about eating her? We talked about how disgusting her skin was. I don't know if we talked about eating it though. That seems a bit.
I feel like it as an unlimited resource had to have come up, but we might not have specifically mentioned eating it. But like between the two, right? Like you got yourself some real Southern cooking. Like you get those two on a team.
Please. Please write in with all of any mutant that has a mutant power that can contribute to Southern style cooking, please.
Like X-Men recipes. And it's just literally like using discarded parts of X-Men.
This is going to be the weirdest episode of Top Chef ever. I can't wait.
It's chopped and then they open the basket and like Barrow just pops out. Like,
hey,
Mutant Liberation Front. And your secret ingredient is me.
Marrow is a host and an ingredient. That would be the best.
That would be awesome. Like, and then she has to eat it herself. Like, that's some twisted shit, man.
Hey, if you want to talk about boar, we can get into it.
If we had to talk about like put together a whole team that was just to create a melange like kind of soup thing, there's probably more even than that, right?
Does
anybody who creates something?
Let's see, pyro would be kind of necessary, I think, just to have some heat in there.
Yep. I'm trying to throw in some pyro. There's a member of the new acolytes called Vindaloo who does heat, but it's a very specific kind of heat, aka like spicy Indian food. Okay.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, I was trying to think of somebody who could give us some spice, and I guess that works.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think if there's any.
Man, I mean, the obvious answer is fucking multiple man, dude. Like that's how you get every part of the stew.
That's every part of the long pig. Is that what you're going for?
Because if we want some meat, like it's not just marrow and skin, like. The entree is definitely Jamie Madrox.
Okay, I would feel a little bad about because I mean even if he volunteered for it, once he made the duplicate, as we know from our multiple man history, like that's a separate person who hasn't necessarily volunteered their body. So it's basically multiple man killing himself over and over again.
Like it'd be a prestige thing, aka the Greatest Showman, aka Huge Jackman,
aka Huge Jackman,
yeah, Huge Jackman, Huge Jackman. Hello,
me Logan at any time. The next email is from Eric. He says, "Hey y'all, stumbled on your podcast a couple of weeks ago and just got caught up to the end of your coverage of the first season. X-Men the animated series got me hooked on the mutants as a kid, and I've never stopped being a fan on some level ever since. Really enjoying the podcast, especially the Gambit impressions. I appreciate how much you all let your enthusiasm for these characters show. I'm right there with you. I hope after the animated series you will consider taking on Evolution and Wolverine on the X-Men. I'm in a band called the Little Big Bangs, and we did a weird take on the theme song for a tape we put out last year. I thought thought you all might find it interesting. Blah, 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 blah. Thanks for the hours of enjoyment. I hope the songs give you some back. I did blah, blah, blah because he started talking about download codes there, not because it was, I was just kind of rushing past.
We're just cutting him off. He started talking about his sick sister, actually, and whether we can pimp her GoFundMe. And Geremy just said, blah, 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 blah.
Finally, remember, there's always more gators in the bayou. So we actually used a song. I sent this guy a message back and said, hey, like, it's a really good cover of the theme song. Can I use it? And I believe it's at the end of our live episode that we did on Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine. And I will more than likely use it at the end of this episode too, since it got brought up here as well.
Yeah, let's do a reminder. So yeah, shout out to Eric
and the Little Big Bangs.
Little Big Bangs. And thanks, Eric. We have no current plans to do Evolution or Wolverine and the X-Men, but like, we don't plan on ending the show, so there's a chance we'll definitely get to those. It's on the immediate plans. We'll reiterate our immediate plans at the end of this one.
Yes.
So thanks, Eric. Sam Barra says, and I use the last name because we use his last name all the time on the network. I can't read just Sam or just Samuel.
We have to mention Sam Barra so that he gets his podcast credit. Like that's how this works.
Exactly. Sam says, do either of you have any sort of ritual involved in watching the X-Men for the show or otherwise, like without certain people or with a specific food or beverage? Thanks for keeping me watching the show, Sam. No,
not really.
No.
I mean, lately
it depends on what we're watching.
Yeah, lately when it comes to the animated series, like my ritual is, have a laptop in my lap and like take notes as I watch it because we want to be able to keep up with the show when we record the podcast or whatever, or note down like sound cues and stuff as they happen so that I can get them to Gary. But no, like Autumn kind of checked out of the animated series pretty early. She was like, "This seems like a good time for you to have by yourself," and I was like, "Okay, sweetie, no problem." But she does listen to the show. Like she listens to the podcast, and she's like, "This is more than enough for me. Like I don't need to watch the shitty animated series to enjoy this." So yeah, this is just pretty much just me and the X-Men. Like maybe a beer, but like probably not either. Like just kind of watching a show. So
we're watching something for something we haven't announced yet. So we'll talk about that eventually, but we're watching a little bit of side content. And for that, my ritual is to be playing The Binding of Isaac and having like music playing and doing as many possible things as I can to keep my attention because the thing that we watch definitely doesn't.
Yeah. I have struggled with making notes for that unannounced thing because
it's rough. I'm halfway through it and the friction of putting in the second disc is stopping me from like watching more of it. And I've been sick, man. I've got this like upper respiratory thing. Like all I'm doing is laying in bed and I'm like, well, I can't really sleep because there's all these like stimulants in this cold medicine I have. So I could watch this thing or I could stare. And like staring, it sounds real good. So I've been doing a lot of staring instead.
Just stare at this and have a great time doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just looking at the ceiling, checking out, like guessing about it, kind of figuring out the lore and the backstory. So it's we'll get to that, and you guys will hopefully hear that sometime in the next as the time we're recording this in the next 5 weeks or something like that, 4 weeks, somewhere in there. So thanks, Sam.
Our next one is from Brian. Is this a Brian that's been mentioned on Abject Suffering a few times? Can I use his last name, or is this?
No, this is a Brian who I interact with on Twitter and stuff, but not a Brian who.
So this is just Brian. Ever since the Japanese openings were brought to my attention, I've had to wonder if the audience in Japan still loved the show or were somewhat disappointed, especially when you see things like Beast splitting the earth with a punch and looking all feral, and Jubilee seeming to be kind of useful in a fight. Wow, Jubilee burn out of nowhere at the end of that, Brian. Damn.
Jubilee's skills mostly aren't in fight. It's mostly in medical technology and healing.
Mm-hmm. And for untangling, if you're keeping up with the
lore. If I buy those special scissors.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I'm putting this together is that if Japanese viewers felt catfished, because the opening for the Japanese version of the cartoon is real big and anime, and then the cartoon is the same though. So it looks like it's going to be full of feral beast and all these kind of things. And then when you get to the actual cartoon, it's just the same thing we're watching, where it's 3 frames of Sabretooth holding a car going, twisting his torso back and forth while holding a car.
Yeah. So selling you a bill of goods that you're not necessarily getting in the comics, or excuse me, in the cartoon.
I would imagine that Japanese viewers don't feel that way because that's the same thing that happens with the Mega Man cartoon, which aired over there as well. I think that's fairly normal for cartoons to have a much more produced intro. as opposed to the actual content of the show. I think that's pretty normal.
I know I always get catfished when the manga I buy has a color on the cover and then just black and white on the inside. It's black and white. Yeah, give me every fucking time. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I don't buy manga.
The thing I do everyone, for a little while it went around Twitter where everyone's just like, ever since I saw the Japanese opening of this, like there's a weird thing that pops up on Twitter and it comes up with video game covers a lot too, where it's like, oh man, I can't believe we didn't get the cool Japanese version of this and the little show version. And sometimes it is cooler. This is an example where I don't think it's cooler. Like I don't need to see the beast like punching the ground and causing an earthquake. Like that just feels dumb, and it's a thing to me that's one of the reasons that gets in the way of me enjoying anime is that it's always so over the top. Like it feels like there's no sense of weight to the action. And this is no different from that. Like it just everything, it doesn't make sense to me. Like as much as Beast is annoying on the cartoon, like I like his abilities.
Yeah.
He's kind of strong. He's pretty agile. It feels like it's limited in a way that is really appealing to me as opposed to just making everybody equally powerful and all the power levels set to 10.
and then like on the final episode, let's rank them all up to 15 where you just flying around. Everybody can fly all of a sudden.
That's why you end up with that like over 9,000 nonsense, is because everybody starts so high that they have to just keep pushing the goalpost to make something a threat.
Are you dissing my chili powder? Is that what's happening right now?
I love that chili powder, man. Like, have we talked about the chili powder on?
I don't think
is that shown up yet?
No, I don't think it's appeared anywhere. But yeah, Autumn ordered. We've been getting into making chilies. I'm trying to bring my cooking game in 2018. I'm trying to learn how to cook some shit, and so it started with the world's easiest food, which is meat in a pot. So Autumn was like, "Oh, hey, I found this like cool seasoning place, and they have these chili spices. We should pick up some." And I said, "Sure, that's no problem." She goes, "Well, wait, they have two kinds. I don't know which one to get." And so she got both. And when I opened up the package, the first one was Chili 3000. The chili of now, and I was like, well shit, this is great. I love this. I love this a lot.
I'm really into the idea of the chili of now.
Yeah, not
a real zeitgeist flavored chili.
Not yesterday chili.
Yeah.
not tomorrow chili. And then of course the second bottle was Chili 9000, which was the chili of tomorrow, which contains all sorts of interesting stuff like like crushed chocolate and things.
And other spices that don't exist yet.
Yeah, because it's Chili 9000.
Yeah. It will eventually, exist. Like eventually our children's children will understand that kind of chili. But not us.
Yeah, that's we don't get it. That's Cable's chili.
Yeah. It's Tyler's chili.
He's going to bring Chili 9000 up and it's going to be the hope for mutant kind in the current world. We need to make the chili of tomorrow the chili of today is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I love the idea of like just a little picture of Tyler with like a blaster, corner of a chili packet, like just like with his like shitty blank stare and his dumb blonde hair. Oh man! And then you get the Chili 9001, which is the Strife clone chili.
Sure. And then Deltron chili, which is just like the sci-fi hip hop epic of Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Hubert. Yeah. Anyway,
truly, Andre 3000 was a chili of today.
Oh wow.
But yeah, you guys got to get that chili so I can hear about it. You have to eat it. Like I don't. It's not enough to hear about it. I need you guys to actually eat that chili.
Well, we finally ran out of the chili that we had put up. So now we are faced with a very difficult decision of do we make, because usually when I make a pot of chili, like we make a huge pot and then like I'll freeze it and I'll give some to Mark, my father-in-law, and we'll have it on hand. So it like takes us a while to get through it. So do you think I should make two small batches and do one of each, or do you think I should make just one batch and just commit to one?
I think you should make 3 and do Chili 7000, which is half and half as well.
See, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
No, I mean, I guess it would be, or chili, it would be like chili, what, 6,000? Chili 6,000.
Chili 6,000, yeah. What is the chili mean of 6,000? We need like a fucking math formula behind it.
Yeah, chili math. I would like to, I think that, making both, because it's a chili, like at the end of the day, like I'm not trying to put demands on your money, but like it's a chili packet. Like I can't imagine this is going to break the bank. Making a couple small batches and then saving half the powder, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the best way to go.
And then you can know the difference, right? Like how else are you going to know which one is better? Like if you commit to one and you go through chili that slowly, like it's gonna be a long time before you try the other one. So.
Yeah, I got to try this chili, Gary. I got to try the
I
chili.
really like the idea of the chili of today, and I really like the idea of the chili of tomorrow.
And then we're
I would even if it had like chili one, and it was like the chili of yesteryear, and like a picture of like an old fashioned caveman whittling wood on a rocking chair or something like that. I think I would still be into that as well. Like just the idea of ascribing time to chili, time for chili. Like I like that. Look, time for chili.
TTC, yeah.
yeah. I enjoy that quite a bit. So, I need to find such a thing here as well. I haven't had a real good chili in Portland. I'm sure it exists, but I haven't had it. So,
how was the
I made good chili? But
how was the boudin that you found in Portland after you came back here?
I'm glad you asked, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I went down to Louisiana, I was turned on to the magic of boudin. Which is a Cajun sausage that has like rice and vegetables inside that's pre-cooked. I didn't like it that much. The actual stuff, I expected the actual stuff to be better, of course. But the problem with this was it was a little bit too spicy, which I can, I'm fine. Like I like spice. So that's easy, but it was too smoky. Like it was like, they'd used just like a lot of smoke. And, they have at the same butcher shop, they have a white boudin, which apparently there's some kind of conversion kind of thing, because you said that the boudin we had in Louisiana was white boudin, and the other stuff is like blood sausage.
Yeah, and that was apparently very wrong. I found out later from Autumn that was totally wrong.
Okay, I assumed that the butcher shop by my house was wrong, because you've got the Cajun blood within you. Mm-hmm. I thought you had it right. So the white boudin, which is like a chicken kind of boudin they have here, I'm going to try that next and see how that treats me. But the actual boudin, it's like, I'm not going to get this again. Like it wasn't like, it wasn't a war crime, but it just wasn't as good. So I still haven't gone to like a restaurant. There's a couple like Cajun restaurants that have it. Yeah. That I want to check out, but still have not done that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's sausage chat. I love encased meats.
Just wrap it up in some intestine and put it in a steamer and give it to me.
Yeah, way into it. There's got to be a character like Marrow, but like for sausage. Like she just kind of like slurps out sausages out of the joint.
Who was that? Who was that like plasma dude? I feel like you could encase some meat in that plasma. He was in the new X-Men, Grant Morrison's run. He was like one of the kids that was running around with.
Glob Herman,
Glob,
the guy who was like who was living wax.
Okay, well maybe not. Yeah, maybe back off of living wax.
You can still like you could encase like a meat in a wax, and you just have to peel it off. Or he'd be good for cheese. And there's definitely like if we get Bova. Like, so we add to our culinary X-Men crew that all just create food. We get Bova to create a series of cheeses for us, and then we get Glob Herman to melt and preserve that cheese.
I don't want to talk to somebody or something that I have made cheese from. I just want to. No? I just want to make that like a hard line in the like. I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to. Like if I ever like if I met a cow. What you're
saying at all? Like I can't relate. I think that I don't understand why. How do you figure?
If I met a cow and the cow was like, yeah, that Parmesan you just ate, that came from me. I'd be like, well, I'm very uncomfortable now. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to make it. I don't want to make a cheese out of something that can talk. Let me just.
I'm sure I've told this story on podcast before. I might have told it to you before, and it's real gross. I guess I should, because I'm gonna tell it again because it couldn't be more related. I shouldn't have brought it up all the times I brought it up before, and I should wait for now. And if you have a sensitive stomach, maybe fast forward about 45 seconds.
Oh, good.
But my friend Austin, sometimes like a male will lactate because men and women are basically have the same bodies with just a couple different switches flipped. So almost everything that happens in a man happens in a woman, and vice versa, right? So for a little while in his teenage years, he kind of lactated a little bit, and it was a source of fun for everyone making fun of my buddy, my boy who would lactate. And I kept trying to get him to make a cheese and then make his own like bespoke packaging with just like a big smile and picture him in the corner, and just put it into stores, like just like leave it on a shelf in the cheese section with like a little barcode so you could trick people into getting it.
It's just like the worst Banksy I've ever heard of.
It'd be super, like it would just be, it'd be for like, yeah, it's gross, man. It would just be for a prank.
And there's a label on it that just says capitalism.
Yeah, it would just be like Austin's finest or something like that, and just have a picture of him smiling.
Keep
just
Austin
like
weird.
Grin.
Keep Austin weird. The cheese.
Yeah, it would be weird, man. Because like somebody's out there, man. I saw a Craigslist ad recently for somebody wanting to make human milk or human cheese. Recently, it's fucking. You can make cheese out of any milk, and that's gross. And it reminds me of the fact that, like, in some countries, like, they just don't. They think the fact that we eat cheese is the most disgusting thing in the world because it is kind of gross, right? Like, if you actually look at it. But I love it so much. So it's just very arbitrary. Like, this animal is good to make cheese from, but this, like, I wouldn't eat dog cheese. Why? You know, it doesn't make sense to me that like a goat cheese is good, but a dog cheese is bad. Like it's all arbitrary.
Do you know why? Because I feel like the French have been making cheese for about 5,000 years now, give or take.
Okay.
Give or take. I mean, I haven't looked at a history book in a little while, but roughly 5,000 years. And I have to imagine that they would have at least tried that a few times and been like, nope, it's not good.
Yeah, maybe it just doesn't taste good.
And like some of the cheese that the French like, I think taste horrible. So if they think that the dog cheese is bad, you know what I'm saying? Like I just want to rely upon I want to stand upon the shoulders of giants and declare that dog cheese is bad.
You're probably right. That's probably what it is. Like we've probably tried to make cheese out of everything we can make cheese from, and the cheeses that have survived through history are the good tasting cheeses.
Exactly. Yeah.
That probably makes sense. However, bova, cow.
Which is funny because all of the good cheese is named American cheese when I go to Subway. So that's funny that this just started that way. I don't know who American cheese was in BC, but thank you, Dude, American cheese.
I have not had a slice of American cheese like since I moved out from my mom's house.
Like a Kraft single.
Just the idea of like eating a Kraft single, like a bunch of grapes, like laying on my back on a chaise lounge and dipping a Kraft single into my throat makes me kind of gag a little bit.
You got to do the 4-way, the turn, like where you fold it over in half and then fold it over in half again. And it makes the perfect Ritz size sliced
like the
cheese
flag folding ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. The Kraft single. Fucking gross, dude.
Please read Luke's email, and I can.
No.
This one's in the middle. This one's pretty long. So if you want me to jump in the middle, I can because it's kind of.
No, I hopefully got it. We shall see. Luke says, "What are your guys' thoughts on different cheeses you can make from X-Men? I think that Bova would make the best cheese."
Fucking Luke!
Damn it, Luke! No. Luke actually says, "All right, lads." I just got done listening to the Wolverine Origins episode, and while it was great to listen to, I don't feel like you called the film out enough for the way it specifically fucks with the X-Men mythos. The two issues which stand out to me. Cyclops doesn't shoot laser beams, he shoots concussive force. In the film, they are portrayed very deliberately as heat rays, more like Superman than Psych. It legitimately bothered me probably more than it should. 2. Why can adamantium bullets suddenly penetrate Wolverine's skull? That's not how indestructibility works. That's not how anything works. Making a bullet from metal doesn't make it magically be able to shoot through that metal. And if it punctured Logan's skull, he can't grow back the adamantium bones, so does he just have this hole in his skull for the rest of the series? I considered how often he gets shot. Something should have gone through that hole at some point and punctured his brain again. Whew. Good to get that off my chest. Well, let's actually address those and then move on with the rest of it.
Yeah,
let's split up our responses just because there's a lot there.
Number one is the comics don't even address this with any kind of consistency. Like this has been a big point of contention with basically anybody that reads X-Men comic books is you'll get a new artist or a new writer on X-Men and they just treat not just Cyclops. Like Cyclops is kind of the most glaring example of this in a lot of times, but a lot of X-Men powers get treated completely differently. And that's why you have stuff like, Bobby can now control molecules of water or something because Iceman, and Cyclops is putting out fires with his concussive blast, but also lighting birthday cake candles. So like it definitely bothers you more than it should because you should just embrace not giving a fuck like we have. And just like whatever quality Cyclops content you can get your hands on is worth it.
Yeah. I think that, that stuff will kind of bother me sometimes, but it always feels to me like it's whenever a writer does something like that to get their way out of a jam, like a plot jam, they could just have him have a blaster or something like that, and I'd rather have him do cool power shit than just be like, good thing I brought my heat ray thing. Like this doesn't apply to the movie, but just in general in the comics, that inconsistency, like I'm okay with powers being a little bit fast and loose because they could do the same thing with like a device. And I want to see less devices. In general, in the movie, I think.
What do you think about having a device that's powered by concussive beams that light stuff on fire?
Maybe it could be like a setting on his visor.
Yeah. Like it's like a refract. Like if I tune my crystal quartz at a certain frequency, then I can send out fire beams as opposed to concussive beams, and then healing beams, and then not gene beams, and then
healing beams. Cannot. That might be a bridge. And I think in the movie, the reason why we didn't bring it up in the movie is because like Cyclops comes in pretty late, and there's just so much to talk about. Like the idea of somebody being like, man, you guys are pretty easy on that movie. Like I don't remember being easy on it at all. Like I remember being pretty mad about it.
There were four guys on that podcast, and we spent like an hour and a half, or I think about 2 hours, like just dogging that movie to death.
Yeah, there's not very much to like about it. So we were pretty we were pretty cranky about it. But there is, to your point, you're probably right about that. The second bit, like you're definitely right about that too. But like again, like they could have just said like, oh, it's like a special vibranium something or other. You know, they could use other sciencey things. This is just kind of simpler. You know, and having that bullet is really necessary for Logan to work. That movie and I think that what they bought with that compromise was worth buying.
Yeah, and I don't even mind, like, it's a special kind of gun that sends adamantium slugs at a certain frequency that will literally penetrate anything, including adamantium walls, right? Because, just whatever science bullshit you need around that. And then to his other point about the bones, like, he doesn't have adamantium bones, he has adamantium-coated bones. So, like, his skull in theory, his skull would grow back, but he would just not, like, it would be not, that part wouldn't have metal anymore, right? Like it would just be normal skull.
That's what Luke is saying. Like he would have these little holes in the adamantium coating, and that somebody should have hit that before too. I think that's probably true. Like somebody probably would have hit it because he takes a lot of bullets. At the same time though, like I'm imagining reading the comic and having somebody like it's just super non-dramatic to have somebody accidentally hit the exact right spot, right? And just like, well, lucky me, I guess. You could do an arc about it where, like, what would be cool is if you had a character who, like, researched, like, you studied security footage of all the fights that Wolverine's been in where adamantium bullets were in play, and it was like, okay, freeze frame on the spot he needs to aim for, and then, like, snipes him from, that would be kind of cool. Like, that would have been a cool way to do the actual death of Wolverine as opposed to having him, like, get coated in adamantium, which was not cool. So it's just the fact that they haven't done a story, like, actually about it, but I don't want to see it happening randomly.
Yeah, agreed.
Just because I just don't feel like it's very dramatic.
There's a reason that superheroes don't just die randomly in comic books, and that's because that's boring. Like if Cyclops just got like run over by, well, I mean, it would be funny, but not necessarily compelling, right? Like it'd be shitty. Like it'd be funny in a certain way if he just got ran over by a bus, but at the same time, it wouldn't be a very good comic. So.
Yeah, and narrative conceit. Moving on to the rest of Luke's response. While I'm writing in, I had some generic questions I've been meaning to ask for a feedback episode, so I'll tack them on here if that's okay. It looks like Disney might be able to get their hands on the X-Men soon. Would you want to see them folded into the MCU? For me, the X-Men always work best when they keep the other superheroes at arm's length. The whole mutant metaphor falls through when other superheroes exist and are treated with adoration. You spoke about liking X-Men 3 liking that X-Men 3 simplified Juggernaut by making him a mutant. Did you feel that same way about the Phoenix? For my money, the version of the Phoenix is just a repressed part of Jean's own personality and power, and that's much more effective. Lastly, you've spoken a couple times about the problems with open-ended storytelling a la comic books. If you were in charge of some X-Men property, be it film, comic, cartoon, or whatever, how would you like to see it end? Assuming that all good storylines had played out, and you'd prune the worst excesses of the canon, would be the ideal final story for this world and characters. Cheers for reading, and thanks for the amazing work you guys do. Luke.
This so the first question is like, what do we want to see? How do we want to see the X-Men get folded into the MCU? Since Luke wrote this in, that deal passed. That deal went through.
Yeah, that is going to happen at some point.
That will happen at some point. And Hugh Jackman has also said that if they put Wolverine in the Avengers, that he'll come back for that role. Like he'll reprise that role if he gets to be in the MCU. I don't necessarily want that. I don't know. Like in the current MCU and like how all this stuff is working, I'd want to see very small stories, like just the same way I've been rewatching a lot of the MCU in the lead up to Avengers Infinity War because I'm that nerd. And we watched a bunch of the movies leading up to the first Avengers movie. And by the time you get to that first Avengers movie, it's remarkable how much you know about every single person on screen the moment that you see them. Even like smaller parts like Agent Coulson or, even Black Widow. Like Black Widow had been fairly fleshed out before that movie, even though she hasn't had her own movie. I would want to see something like that. I would want to see them take a tremendous amount of time and not necessarily jump to the Guardians of the Galaxy spinoff with, Thor there or anything like that. Like do a small teenage story and have Kitty Pryde run across Spider-Man. Like they did that in the Ultimate X-Men series, and I really liked that kind of dynamic relationship that they had because they were teenagers and they were both superheroes, right? Like so it was kind of interesting and cool to see those two interact. But that slow build up is what Marvel, I think, excels at when it comes to these properties, especially the MCU nowadays. That's what I would want to see. I don't want to see X-Men the movie. I would want to see, and I don't know what those characters are. Like, I don't know if you start with a Cyclops or you start with Storm or whatever. Like, but I would want to see a build up from that.
Yeah. I think that would be definitely what we would need to see. And I think most people are guessing they would treat it like they're redoing the Avengers. Right? Like the X-Men is the second biggest, at the time forever, was the biggest Marvel team, right? Like the Avengers only gained cachet relatively recently, and largely because of the movie. So they would have to do those individual movie origins to build up the X-Men. As far as how that would integrate with the rest of the MCU, I agree keeping them separate is good. Because it's like all of a sudden you're introducing mutants, right? Like all of a sudden there are mutants in this world where they've made it kind of a plot point that it's a big deal that these gods are about and kind of walking around. So having really limited cameos, like I actually wouldn't mind like Hugh Jackman showing up as an Avenger if they do like new Avengers, even just for a movie, like that wouldn't bother me. Having them, but I don't want to see like Avengers versus X-Men really.
Exactly.
Like that stuff is too, feels like that's a lesser storyline even in the comics, and like, having that pop up in the movies, I just don't imagine audiences are going to be there for it. Really, I mean, they handled Civil War really well, but I don't trust them to do that. So keeping them as like cameo style would be the way that I would do it. Like Beast joins the Avengers in the comics, and like him showing up as a new Avenger would also be okay with me if they got him, him looking right. I would be okay with that too. Like doing those kind of like those little bits of crossover like that.
Yeah,
I'm into like Scarlet Witch having a presence. Maybe joining the X-Men.
And that's also going to be really weird since he already has a presence. And Quicksilver's already dead, so spoilers, I guess. Whoops. How would you feel?
Quicksilver wouldn't show up, but like, I just mean like once the X-Men show up, because Magneto would have to show up and retrofitting her origin, to be involved in that. Like, I think you could do some kind of neat stuff. I don't, as I get older, like I get a little less like into some of the continuity wanking. Like I like something that recontextualizes what we know, but I think it just has to be done really carefully. You can get real clever with just like, here's a new perspective on the scene you've already seen. And I like that. I think it can be done well, but I just think it has to be done super carefully.
How would you feel if mutants came about for some like weird the humans are exposed to a substance like from Vision or Tony Stark or like one of the existing, like Doctor Strange fucks up somehow, and like all of a sudden now that we're getting like mutants born in the world, you know what I'm saying? Like, how would you feel about that kind of being because the mutant metaphor was always like nuclear fallout, like creating this weirdness in we developed the nuclear bomb. These are the children of the atom. Like, this is the reason this is coming out. So like to have that kind of starter for the origin for the mutant gene to come out. Like, do you think that'd be cool or not?
I think that would be tricky with timelines, just because those kids would just be being born around now. Like, it would have to be, like, I don't think we could see it happen.
It'd be like something Tony Stark did 10 years ago without meaning to.
Or his dad did.
Or his dad, yeah.
Something like that. Like, I think you or like whoever was the Sorcerer Supreme, like make it, like the wise one or whatever, Tilda Swinton is in Doctor Strange. Like, make it something that happened well before. And I think that would be cool. And I think we could see the mutants start to get their power. And that would be fine. I don't want to see them get born, like, cause then unless they do like a time jump after Infinity War, which I kind of think they might, just based on, I think some people are going to die and they're going to, like, I think the next movie that comes out after that will be a little bit later in
Ant-Man 2. It's going to be a weird ride.
It feels like that's just going to have to be like some kind of change, right? Cause it's the end of the first movement or whatever. So yeah, I think you could retrofit and have it tied into, cause that's probably smart. Like, have it be tied into either like Super Soldier, maybe it's like test subjects from the Super Soldier.
Yeah.
Like their kids, so it's like they didn't get the powers, but it skipped a generation. So all those rejects that didn't turn into Captain America, like their children, like I think you could do a lot with like changing it fundamentally for the movies, right? Like, so as opposed to making it, you could ditch the metaphor. Like, I think X-Men works best when it has the mutant metaphor and stuff. But for the movies, like, you could simplify that a lot instead of making it be like every 20th person has superpowers, because that fucks up everything that's already established. Like, there's 30 mutants, like, keep it really, really limited. And I think that would also be okay. You'd have to redo it from the ground up. It wouldn't be the same thing, but it would play nicer with what they've already done. And what they've already done is worth protecting. Like, it's we talked about this as kind of a joke, but like eventually I think this podcast will probably just turn into like a general like Marvel on screen podcast.
Absolutely.
You know, I can't imagine us not doing the other Marvel movies at some point. And because like, as much as there's a backlash and people, you know, there's kind of like people don't like it. Like, remain impressed and very in favor of the MCU. Like, everything I've seen has been surprisingly good. There was the meme about that most ambitious crossover thing. And it's like, yeah, sure. But also this is really fucking ambitious. Like, we've never seen a movie that has this much lead up to it. You know, like there's like, what is it? Like 15 movies or something that will all play a part in this one movie.
Yeah, it's insane.
That we're going to see in a couple weeks. That's crazy. Like, it's really cool. It's very cool. Like, there's no, the urge to immediately undercut that and shit on it. I don't really understand. Like,
well, I get it because it's the internet. Like, that's what people on the internet do. That's what cool guys on the internet do.
It's just what happens.
Yeah.
You know, but I kind of hate it. Like, because it's, even though, you know, some of these movies are like C- movies, like most of them are really good. Like most of them are B and above, and like just keeping that batting average for this long is something to be kind of respected, you know, and I think it's cool to be a part of it. Like, I think it's cool to see it in my lifetime. Like, and I don't want that to be fucked up. So like just adding this whole other thing that kind of I don't want the X-Men to ruin it, you know, and if that means that there has to be a cinematic version of the X-Men that is pretty different than the X-Men I love, like, I'm willing to go with that.
Oh yeah. And I think because the previous movies have done a reasonably good job of keeping those X-Men stories kind of similar, or if not the same as the comic books, like having a new take on that would be fine. Like, we've already, like, the people that
they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, the people that want those X-Men movies, like, hey, you've got those. Like, there's like 8 of those. Like, go watch those movies. So, you know, let Marvel kind of mix and match with how they want to do this. And I totally agree with you. Like, we shouldn't have 150 mutants at all. Like, I wanted it to be a very, very small cast, to have these powers be kind of focused on and be weird, and like you get to know all of these characters in different ways. So,
you know, and just there's no rush. Like, introduce them slowly. Like, eventually maybe mutants will be a big thing, but like seeing that actually happen would be really cool. What they can't do is just be like, actually, this whole time that you were watching the Avengers, you know, and you watched the climax of the Avengers and all these people were dying and needed the superheroes to save them, there were, 7,000 superhero beings who just lived there and didn't do anything about it. You know, like, you can't really do that. Like, they did some retrofitting stuff with Spider-Man or something like that, right? Like, where it's like, they showed the kind of thing, and he was, I think they showed, like, he mentions that incident in Spider-Man, but mostly he was just a little kid then, so he didn't do anything. Like, you can't have just like, a bunch of people just sat on their hands for no reason. And if you start doing those kind of retcons over and over and over again, like, eventually that just gets so unwieldy that it's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So changing it significantly, I think is a good idea, and I'm here for it, you know, no matter what. Like, I'm really curious, and I trust the MCU people more than I trust the X-Men people at this point. Like, I like those X-Men movies, but like, there's more bad X-Men movies than there are bad MCU movies. And they're less like visionary. They're less of a single kind of solitary vision. Mm-hmm. That I trust the people who are doing these Avengers movies significantly more.
Same.
So even if I like the X-Men more than I like the Avengers in general.
And we have a whole other X-Men movie to get through before that's ever going to happen. Like, we still have this. I don't know that they've named it, but it's definitely going to be like the Phoenix movie coming. That's the sequel to Apocalypse, starring all those kids. So. Yeah,
I think it's called X-Men Phoenix.
Is it? Okay.
I thought they named it. Yeah. The and I'm excited for that too. Like, it's been a minute, and I rewatched Apocalypse, and it's better than I remember it. Like, while not being particularly good, but it's definitely better than I remember it being. Like, enough to where I want to see the Phoenix one.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of the Phoenix, the second question is all about changing the Phoenix's storyline to kind of remove that the Cosmo origin of Phoenix and have it be her repressed anger. And I agree with Luke that I like as much as I kind of like all of the cosmology of the X-Men. Like I've said before in this podcast, like once they go in space, they kind of lose me, especially when they start talking to bird people. So the less I have to deal with that, the better off. But this is a very, very non sequitur spoiler for the new season of Legion. There's a guy who's like a scientist dude, and he's inspecting this thing, and he's like, "Well, man, this technology looks weird, but I know it's not Shi'ar." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Oh, hey.
So they're and literally never mentioned again. So like that's not a significant spoiler or anything, but it's just a casual mention, which makes me think that somebody over at Marvel is like, "Hey, if you have the room, put the word Shi'ar in your show somewhere
in there, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. Like, I think the metaphor works on its own. Like, just the idea of Phoenix just being super, super powerful and just having this repressed side is stronger than there being a cosmic force that does it. You know, even though there are some good stories that are done with that cosmic force. You know, I agree that it's better if it's just Jean. And then finally, kind of like how we'd want to see these perpetual stories end. I think that ending with the ellipses is the best way to do it, actually. So like like a way that implies future stories. So weirdly enough, like I like the way the cartoon did it, where it's like, you know, it asks a question rather than does a statement. Like, what are the X-Men without Charles Xavier? Like, that's an interesting question. You can kind of leave that open. Or the way that Logan did it, which it's like, hey, there's these kids, they escaped. You know, we talked about that during that episode, and like, I would go see a movie that was the adventures of those kids. At the same time, like, I'm okay with that just being like this hopeful ending. Like, hey, the struggle goes on. You know, it's an end for a character. It's not an end for a concept. And I kind of like that.
I do too. Like that, the asking a question at the end as opposed to trying to, what I don't like to see. I mean, so there's a, I do like it when a show goes out of its way to tell you the exact ending for every single thing, right? I'm trying to remember the name of the HBO show that did this so well about the family that owned the funeral home, and I'm coming up blank, but it does not matter.
6 Feet Under.
6 Feet Under did this. Like the final episode of that show, like traces out where all of those people live and what they do and how they like. I would be okay with that, but I don't know that would really work for the X-Men. I really like the idea of being like, okay, the old way is gone. Here is the new way. Like whether that's with new characters or old characters or whatever, but like, you know, this has been done. So now we're into a new phase, and it just leaves your imagination running. Like, what could that possibly be? So, way more into that than answering questions.
Yeah, and you don't need to close that door. You know, it can be like open. Like maybe at some point, if they decide to open it back up, they can. It just doesn't have to be. Though, yeah. So the the end of The Wire.
Yeah,
like The Wire ends really well and tells you, every character gets closure.
Yeah, that's also extremely good.
And I love that. Like, yeah, there's ways to do it that are really good. But I think the X-Men, like, there's a Chris Claremont comic that is called X-Men: The End, and it's a set of 3 miniseries that are supposed to be his ending of it, and it's legitimately one of the worst comics that have ever come out.
Yeah, I've read some of that. And it's not good.
Yeah, it's excruciating, and I think that it's really hard to do that. You know, like actually try to wrap everything up, and he knows, for everything you can say about Chris Claremont, he knows those characters pretty well. Like he spent, their golden age with them. It's just, he couldn't do it, so I'd rather just have it probably not be done. Like just get to a new status quo that resolves a theme and resolves characters, but does not resolve the entire concept. So
into it.
Yeah.
We're going to follow.
What does David say?
We're going to follow that extremely lengthy email from David, our friend at Thrinsda, who's always talking to us online on Twitter. He says, which character do you wish you could have seen more of over the course of the series? Who, if anyone, do you wish hadn't been on the show? So I definitely could have used more Longshot and Mojo. Like we got just a tiny taste of those two, and especially Mojo was some of my favorite stuff across the animated series. Like that first episode of the Mojoverse, I think it was called, was just so much fun, and it was completely different and strange compared to what the rest of the series had been up to, and really even following that. Like they didn't really. I'm not gonna say that's the best episode because I'm not really willing to commit to that just off the top of my dome. But it's one of my favorite episodes, and it's hard to think of another one that does it better than that. So for me, it's Mojo.
It would be cool if Longshot joined the team for a little bit. Like I would have liked to have seen maybe like the show is not very dynamic by the nature of Saturday morning cartoons, but it would have been kind of cool if some people came and went for a time. Like what if Beast went and joined the Avengers for a little bit, like he does in the comics, and then Longshot came on or Psylocke came on for a time, or Angel. I think that would have been kind of cool to shake up those dynamics, like perhaps outside the scope of the show, but I think that would have been neat. And that kind of answers both questions. Like I would have liked to have seen some people take a rest. They're definitely near the end of the series. It definitely seemed like they were leaning on Jubilee a little bit more than she could bear. Every episode having Jubilee as a main character and point of view character seemed unnecessary to me. Like have her go and start teaching at Generation X and just have that be a cameo, like have that be an episode about her adjusting, and then have her rotate out and have somebody come in for a little bit.
Yeah.
Would have been really cool. And as far as just people, I'm surprised. I would have liked to have seen it all. Like, it would have been. I'm kind of surprised there's no Shadowcat that shows up.
Me too.
Even
that
for
seems
a cameo or anything. We get Iceman, we get Angel, we get everybody. But Shadowcat's so important to the X-Men, and she doesn't show up at all.
And just while we're talking about Iceman showing up, like more X Factor, please. Like that one episode with X Factor.
More other superhero teams.
Yeah, we're so
like,
good.
Like just like having just the idea that they're around, I think is really cool. And though every time they showed up, it was definitely a delight. So, yeah. Do you want to take Tron's as well?
Yeah,
since
sure.
That one was so short.
Tron says, "This is my good buddy Tron. I like Tron a lot. Thank you for a great show. I have been a fan of the X-Men for many years, both movies and comics, and have followed Days of Future Cast since the first episode launched back in 2016. Was it 2016, Gary? That doesn't seem right. Yeah. It's a highlight of my podcast week, and I always look forward to an episode dropping. But I have never watched an episode of the animated series. I know the characters and storylines from comics, movies, and games, but have never seen the actual show you were describing. I had some plans to start watching at one point, but I'm having too much fun with your descriptions and the occasional sound clip to ever really start watching the show, because it can only disappoint." So, now, as you were wrapping up the animated series, I have some highly relevant questions. Which X-Men characters would form the ultimate musical supergroup, and what would their weird and fantastic music video look like? Which X-Men character would be best suited to join our hunks in a crossover with Supernatural? And keep going with whatever you want to cover. You guys are awesome. P.S. Gary suddenly dropping into his Gambit voice is Chef Fingers kissing sound fantastic and needs to happen more.
Thank you.
That last sentence is...
I would do it now, but my throat is very bad.
Dance, monkey, dance!
Yes. I have a really bad... we went to Milwaukee and I came back with a really terrible infection. Yes. So I don't want to put my vocal cords through anything that they don't want to do. Doing the path of least... This is the throat of least resistance. So, it's a really gross concept.
It's something I think we've talked about before too. Like that rings a bit bell in my head for some reason. Where we talked about throat something, and I don't remember what it was.
I know we've definitely done talking throat, but I don't know if throat of least resistance has shown up yet. So but Gambit will be back. So and I'd say like it's, even if you like the show and have watched it, like the show is still kind of, or like the cartoon's still worth checking out an episode just to see some of this bonkers shit. Like, even if you just like us dunking on it and stuff, like some of the stuff does need to be seen to be believed. So not trying to make you put demands on your time or anything, but it is never say never.
Yeah, absolutely. Musical supergroup is a really hard one, because like is this like we would want to see members of the X-Men join our favorite bands, or is this like to form their own supergroup, or like are they doing cover? Like, do we have a Devo cover band that we're trying to put together? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I was thinking the way I read the question was they would just form a band.
Okay.
So I imagine it'd be like Dazzler teaches everybody like instruments.
Yeah, Lena Chaney shows up, right? And
Lena Chaney and Dazzler are like the two, not Danzler, like the male Dazzler from an alternate universe.
Danzler. It's the guy. It was the other offshoot of Cheers besides Frasier was Danzler.
Yeah, Danzler. But and then they teach everybody. So you'd think like Beast has to play the drums, right? Like he talks about that in a comic, and also like he's a big guy, lots of stamina, upper body strength.
Jubilee's on that drums. Jubilee's on that cowbell.
Yep, Jubilee's on the cowboy /tambo.
Mm-hmm.
And light show, like pyrotechnics. We got Cyclops starts the metronome and then stares at it as it goes, and then stops it on time. Just like slowly nodding with a look of intense concentration on his face.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Wolverine would think that he could like be the next Slash, but it would just be really, really derivative of every single, like he would be looking at Guitar Magazine and like trying to figure out how to play November Rain, but he would never be able to come up with his own original shit, right? Like
he's a super old man too, right? Like he'd probably sit down to play guitar and it'd probably sound like Cole Porter. Like he's a super old dude, so it's like the ink spots, We never thought about that, but I love the idea of Wolverine just being like way into 20s shit, because that's when he was a teen.
That would be that would be really funny. Yeah, absolutely. I'm into this. This whole plot line would be good. More
man, how come that never came up with him and Captain America, or that never comes up when they hang out in the New Avengers? Like the fact that they're both kind of men out of time. Like all that stuff that Captain America was into when he was a kid, like Wolverine knew that stuff. Seems like they should do more with that.
Yeah, like in that, I think it's Cap 2 where Captain America has the list of shit that he needs to check out to try to catch up on. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like him and Wolverine, like a buddy cop, him and Wolverine movie of going through, like, okay, time to introduce you to Pulp Fiction. like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a fun. Great. That'd be a fun watch. Yeah.
I'd watch that webisode. I'd watch that DVD feature.
100%. You've never seen this TV show Supernatural.
No, but I did see a couple of spheres at the Midwest Gaming Classic that were labeled Dean Winchester, so I think I know a thing or two.
No, I have to go dig that tweet out because I sent that to the Supernatural experts from my podcast Monster of the Week, and nobody knew what the fuck that was. It was just two blobs labeled as Dean Winchester, which is just the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Two, like, kind of gross organic looking like seeds or something like that. It was
so gross.
They were just in a bowl.
I feel like somewhere there's like, like Martian Maniac's nuts is on a different statue of Dean Winchester, and where somebody else on a wholly different podcast is having. I just saw this sign, and it was calling Dean Winchester the Martian Manhunter's nuts. I don't get it. I just don't understand what that is. I mean, Gambit is kind of a choice here because he's got that like roguish charm that the Winchester boys kind of pull off, but he's not really. Like he's such a bad person sexually that I don't know that I would want to put. Of course, I mean Sam Winchester does fuck werewolves, so
yeah, and Gambit would do that.
Yeah, totally.
So they'd have a lot to talk about. What if the Winchester boys like ended up like hunting Beast without really knowing who he was, or like they ended up hunting one of the X-Men?
There was a very early on that they did this feint where Sam Winchester and talking to his brother Dean, where Dean was like, no, we have to kill this thing. And he's, that's what we do. We hunt monsters. And Sam Winchester responds, we don't hunt monsters. We hunt evil. Like, I'd love to see that play out with the mutants, right? Like with having them hunt Beast and then all of a sudden like have to have the conversation like, well, sure, he's blue and furry, but he's really nice. And he's dating a blind chick. Like maybe we should just leave this one alone. He's got a more stable home life than we do. Maybe we should just walk away.
I mean, I don't know that show, but like, it would be really cool if like, they get reports or however they get new missions of like, there's monsters in the sewer or whatever. And it turns out to be the Morlocks, and like ends up being a group of people living under the thing who have like powers and stuff. Like, I think you could actually do that crossover pretty well.
Oh yeah. I mean, they landed the Scooby Natural crossover, so I'm pretty confident they can do just about whatever they want to now.
Oh
yeah. You're up with our penultimate message.
Oh yeah. For some reason I thought there was a third question there. Solazar says via contact here. Dear Gary and Geremy, I've been listening to the show for a while, but I recently went back to the first episode. It reminded me of the reason I enjoy the show so much. I can really get behind your views on the X-Men in so many ways. I share a significant amount of the exact likes and dislikes. I'm also a person who loves the X-Men of the 90s, even if it was ridiculous and over the top. I'll probably listen to these episodes again in the future, several times. Keep casting pods about the awesome Marvel animation, please. I hope you do consider doing the whole of the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. I love that almost as much as I did the X-Men. Thanks for the podcasts.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Like, we're definitely going to do the crossover episodes first, but I think there's a good chance we'll go back and just cover the Spider-Man show because it's goofy.
Yeah, I was putting together the schedule, and I think we've talked about, like, I don't have any experience with the show at all, with the Spider-Man show. So I was going through the Wikipedias trying to pull out the X-Men crossover episodes, and then just like skimming through these descriptions of like, there's one episode called Spider-Man Hates Clones that I mean, that just sounds like it's going to be a gosh darn good time. So I'm kind of into it. But yeah, no, and Gary's always is very careful about this, and I am too. Like, no promises on anything because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We don't want to
trap.
We want to underdeliver and underpromise. So that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
So, our last message is from John at 99 Dexterity. John is a really nice guy. I talked to him a lot. You're fine. I talked to him a lot on the internet as well. So he says, the 90s animated series was a huge part of my childhood, and in some ways I maintain a great deal of nostalgia for it. However, having gone back through it with you guys, I realize it's not quite as good as I remember, although there are certainly some good points. I'm ecstatic to see where the podcast goes from here, although you've already given a rough layout, which has me thoroughly excited. P.S. I've taken several clips from the podcast and turned them into my text tones and ringtones. Upon hearing them, friends ask where it's from, and I'm always quick to recommend DOFC and Duckfeed in general. Personal favorites have been Banshee Screams and the Energy Blast jingle from season 1. Thanks for all the laughs and content. I wish you both a great day, John.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really love the idea of that screech being a ringtone. That and I'm not going to go back through. Like I wish I had saved a bunch of that stuff. I didn't save a lot of it. I could go get it from the episode or whatever, but I'm just not going to go do that because it's hard to do. But more that screech was really something else.
Having an annoying ringtone that's like ear catching is better than having a good I recognize that. Like everybody has those Metal Gear Solid alert noises or ringtones, like things like that. Like much better to have something kind of obnoxious. That's because it's an alarm. You want to be like, oh shit, I got a text. Got to do something about that.
Yeah.
Get annoying with it. I'm in favor of that. And then thanks for the support. Like it doesn't, the show being bad or good at this point is almost immaterial.
Yeah.
To the experience of doing the podcast. Like we're gonna catch the good stuff and get good stuff out of it, but like we can also just kind of, it's fun just to talk about it even when it's not good. So it's a good, like a lot of shows on Duckfeed like do that, which I like. Like even when me and Cole do bad games for Watch Out for Fireballs, it can still be a really fun episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've talked before, like our wheelhouse is bad and good. That walking that fine line
at the same time.
Yeah. So,
yep. I have really high hopes about that Avengers cartoon because of that.
Me too.
There's no way that's not, that's like purely good.
Yeah, and just for everybody out there, when I did the schedule, it looks like we're going to do the Spider-Man episodes. We'll have a couple of movie episodes mixed in, and then the Avengers episode, and that'll take us into October. So that's about how long you have to consume those episodes of television. But yeah, thank you everybody for writing in. If you for some reason we missed your contact form or whatever, just let us know. DM us on Twitter, add us on Twitter, send something to the main Duckfeed contact form, whatever you have to do. We'll make sure that gets read out next time we do one of these. But thank you. That's a good amount of feedback. I really like that stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. The next one will probably be like one of the movies and Spider-Man, if I had to guess, and then we'll do like one of the movies and Avengers, maybe. So we'll do the next feedback thing. We don't know exactly when it will be because we don't want to just do feedback after like 5 episodes of the Spider-Man cartoon. Like that doesn't seem like it's significant enough.
Yeah, it'll probably be. Just a guess, but it'll probably be the Spider-Man and a couple movies and all of the Avengers because that's like 10, that's like 6, 7 episodes, 8 episodes or something. So that's a pretty good amount to build feedback for. But like I said, send it in as soon as you think about it. Don't wait. I'll put it on the feedback form. That does not get lost unless the internet loses it before it gets to me. So
yeah. It's also a little tricky too because fewer people even care or know about that Avengers cartoon.
Yeah,
like so many people have just been like, I didn't even know that was a thing,
including me when you told me about it on this podcast. So yeah. Gary, where can you be found on the internet nowadays?
You can find me at GaryBuh on Twitter, GaryBuh, and then everything, all the content and other shows we do at Duckfeed.tv. And where can people find you, Jeremy?
I am at JG Greer. Besides the stuff I do for Duckfeed, I have a couple of other podcasts. Monster of the Week, Don't Give Up Skeleton. One's about Supernatural. One's about Dark Souls. Gary, you've been on Don't Give Up Skeleton with me, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's been a minute. But, yeah.
It's been like 90 episodes. It's crazy. It's been a long time. Go check all that stuff out.
Draw a direct line from Gary Butterfield to Joseph Fink.
That's true. Yeah, that was at the time of this recording. That was today's epised. If you would like to. Yeah.
Just think, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you everybody for listening. Be sure to check out patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv to directly support the Duckfeed network and get all that stuff done. And we will see you next time with First Class.
Good night.
Good night.